Hello, I hope everyone is doing well. I feel like I haven't talked to everyone in a while with spring break happening. So, chapter 8 was a little shorter than our other ones. I know that they use those two quotes, and to be very honest, I had difficulty connecting with those in reference to our students. But what I did really appreciate from the text on page 139 is the line that says, "Our children are our masterpieces, our music and melody, our flight," as Michelangelo and Da Vinci would say. And so when I think about our children being our masterpieces, um, that was just something that I really connected with because it's really where we leave our legacy. And it really actually becomes quite emotional when you talk about it because that is your masterpiece, that is your legacy, and that is where we get to be a part of someone becoming this lifelong learner. As we continue to read and looking at the assessing process or progress, on page 139, I felt like this just connects back to all of those literacy coaching meetings that they talk about having, because this is where we need to let the data drive our instruction. And so when I looked at that and looking at how we use that to, as they say in the book, inform, improve, and increase one's knowledge, skills, and dispositions, it becomes a way to invest in our masterpiece and going back to the student. And so I think as we use that data to drive our instruction, that makes a big difference because we're using what we know, not what we think, not what we perceive just from guessing or saying something, but that we have that data to support it. Specifically when we are looking at evaluating our literacy programs. And so when we looked at on page 140 about collaborative team leadership and how they need to discuss and they need to decide what's the purpose, what needs to be evaluated, when to do that, how will it be evaluated and monitored, and then how well it has evaluated. And so when we look at all those things of course take time, but that time really lets us be able to create great programs. I liked the last part about how well it has evaluated because I feel like that's a big reflection piece on the whole evaluation process. And it talks about how after you've done all this, you kind of start over. And as we know in classrooms and each year we have to do that depending on the needs of our students, the needs of our teachers, the needs of our campus. So when we get to page 149 and we're looking at resetting those goals because we've met those little goals and we get to move on, one of the things that has been really important, but I felt like they honed in on this quite a bit, was celebrating your achievements. Before moving on to new goals, we recommend celebrating your achievements. That was on page 141. And I just appreciated that because we so quickly want to move on to the next thing. And it's vital to celebrate those little achievements. When we get to page 142, at the very bottom, my notes, I just wrote in real big letters, yes, with a capital letters and an exclamation mark. The author states, celebrate the little things, celebrate the big achievements, celebrate the everyday good you do. So we need to do that with our students and with our staff. And that was really modeled with Don Hamlin in the response to intervention and literacy leader section that was kind of modeled here. She really focuses on celebrating often, but in meaningful ways. And what I really like about this is that she talks about doing those celebrations, but then setting self goals with the students. And I think when we see students create meaningful goals and they get to be a part of that process, I love that she connects how it's an important strategy for future success. But really that's a life skill that we need to make sure our students know how to do and how to use, because we want to make sure just because you get there doesn't mean that you're done. My My son told me a quote that he heard, and it's a sports person, but he said that he was told somebody will always be better than you, but you cannot ever let that be because you didn't give it your all. You didn't try hard enough. And so he is constantly trying to practice. He's 11. He's practicing constantly. He knows there are kids out there better than him at baseball, but he's not going to let that stop him from continuing to practice and do better. And I think that's what we have to look at when we talk about literacy. You know, as a teacher, as a coach, as a student, there's always going to be someone out there better than us. But it was mentioned in here, the whole idea of iron sharpens iron. Let's learn from those people. That was in an earlier text, an earlier chapter about finding someone who is the best and making them our mentor. And thankfully, you know, I've had those opportunities to do that. But on page 144, that closes with the idea of, and mentioning that the book has really been promoting change and helping us as educators. It says this book calls out to educators to be agents of change themselves. And we all know, if you're trying to do it alone, it's not sustainable. You're going to wear yourself out. There will be tears shed, and you may be standing alone at the end, but that's why that collaboration piece is so important. And I have learned so much this school year, that takes time. On my part, on other staff, it just takes time. And so we have to be willing to invest that, because when we don't, we're going to be frustrated. We're going to be working alone. We need to have those common goals, and so collaboration helps us do that. In the closing thoughts, one of the things that was also mentioned is to reflect on notes. What it says, a new sense of confidence to inspire your work with children and adults. And I do feel like this book, this text has really inspired me. And as I read some of the pages earlier, one of the notes I wrote is that this is what I was made to do. And that was in the middle of the text. And it isn't so much, I don't know if I was made to do it. I know that I want to do it. I know that I feel like I can do this. And I feel like the text itself really calls us and equips us and gives us those tools and ideas to do that. And I think one of the big takeaways I've learned from this text, you know, at first I started this thinking a learning coach, a reading coach, that's a position that has a title and that's what I want to do. But as we read through this text, your title may not be a literacy coach. Your title may not be reading coach or instructional coach, but that as they started from chapter 1, we are all literacy coaches. We all have a voice, and we all can create that change in our communities, in our districts, in our classrooms, with our staff and with our teachers and on our campus. And so I hope that everyone else got as much as I did out of this. I feel like there's so much more that I could continue to talk about, especially when we're looking at those rewards and the positive feedback that we can give our students. But I think, just as they've stated here, just celebrate those small things, celebrate the big things, always celebrate, and then go back and reflect and move forward and set those goals. I look forward to hearing from you all this week.